And are you able to?
Hello and welcome everyone. We are just getting started with our live stream. Let's make sure it's up and running. I'm just going to check that we're live here.
Did you see Beth's message, Max?
I did, yes. And we are live. We have visitors joining in. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Max Wilbert. I am one of the co-founders of Protect Thacker Pass, and I'm also a defendant in the lawsuit that we're here to talk about today. Back in 2023, just over a year ago, there was a series of protests and actions that took place at Thacker Pass, the site of the Thacker Pass lithium mine. And as a result of these actions, Lithium Nevada Corporation filed a lawsuit against people, including those of us who are here. Terry didn't actually get a lawsuit filed against him. He's just an attorney representing us. So this event tonight is a fundraiser for our legal defense. We're going to hear from Terry Lodge, who's one of the attorneys working with our legal defense. Will Falk is also an attorney and is going to share some insight into the legal situation as well. We're going to hear from Dean Barlese of the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, who's an elder and a spiritual leader and somebody who was on the front lines last April and May. We're going to hear from Bhie-Cie Zahn-Nahtzu, who is from the Reno Sparks Indian Colony and also was out on the front lines with us, Paul Cienfuegos. And we may have another one of our defendants joining us later in the call today. She's just getting off work. So for folks who are watching, I want to remind you that this is a fundraiser, and if you're able to donate, we would be very grateful for your support. We're going to share the fundraising link in the comments to make sure that folks have an access to that. And I also want people to be aware that the fundraiser includes an auction component. So we have some items that are available for you to bid on as part of this auction, including some books by those of us who are here, some drums and some other items from Dean Barlese, some artwork and other pieces that were made by Bhie-Cie. And if folks are interested in taking a look at those, we would be very grateful for any bids that you're willing to make. So once again, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time. And as we get started, I'm going to pass it off to my good friend, Will Falk, who is going to speak a little bit about the history of the campaign to defend Thacker Pass and how we got to this point. Will, could you introduce yourself and take that away?
Yeah, my name is Will Falk. I'm one of the other co-founders with Max of Protect Thacker Pass. I guess all of this started on January 15th, 2021. Max and I went out to the site of Lithium Nevada Corporation's massive open pit lithium mine, the Thacker Pass lithium mine. The same day that the federal government issued the final permits for that mine, we went out and set up a protest camp in Thacker Pass. It was like a nice sunny January day in the high 40s when we got out there. And within 4 days, we were introduced to the massive blizzards that can sometimes hit northern Nevada. And we were just out there in our little tent, and our goal was to raise awareness about the Thacker Pass lithium mine and how destructive it actually was going to be. The Thacker Pass lithium mine will disturb about 17,000 acres of a beautiful mountain pass in northern Nevada, kind of about 20 miles south of the Oregon line. The Thacker Pass is known as Peehee Mu'huh in Paiute. And it was given that name after some Paiute folks were massacred there. And when their loved ones came back, they found them lying dead in the sagebrush. And Thacker Pass is kind of shaped like a moon. And so they named it Rotten Moon because of the smell. There was also a massacre there on September 12th, 1865, where at least 31 Paiute men, women, and children were murdered by American cavalrymen. So it's a site of 2 massacres of Paiute people. It's also very critical habitat to a number of the most iconic species in the Great Basin, including greater sage grouse, golden eagles, pronghorn antelope. It's old growth sagebrush itself, which is a very important kind of keystone ecosystem in the region. Despite that, the Lithium Nevada Corporation is going to put in a massive open pit lithium mine on that beautiful mountain pass, destroying native culture and destroying really good habitat for so many other creatures. So, you know, we went out there to raise awareness. We also were serious about trying to stop the mine. What ended up happening was, you know, we started meeting a lot of native folks in the region, people who consider this place really important, really sacred, really culturally important. Long story short, we ended up working with the Reno Sparks Indian Colony to sue the Bureau of Land Management for permitting the Thacker Pass lithium mine, despite all the sacredness and endangered creatures that live there. You may not know this, but in the United States, mining corporations have a right to mine valuable minerals that they find on public lands. So there was no legal action that was going to actually stop this mine. The president himself cannot revoke a mining permit under the 1872 mining law. Eventually what was called for was civil disobedience and direct action in Thacker Pass to try and stop construction equipment from destroying the place. And that's what we ended up, because we had no other legal recourse, no other way to oppose this mine. Some of us engaged in civil disobedience and direct action in Thacker Pass last April and May. The result of that was the Lithium Nevada Corporation ended up suing a handful of us, people that are here on this call. They could potentially get hundreds of thousands of dollars from us for having the audacity to go out and commit civil disobedience while they were destroying a massacre site. We're just kind of moving into the teeth of the actual lawsuit against us. People will speak about this more, but as you may know, we lawyers end up costing money. You know, while Terry is very graciously helping us for not any money, we do have to hire a local Nevada attorney based off of the Nevada state rules. And that's going to be expensive as we get into litigation. So that's what we're trying to raise money to defend ourselves from the fines that Lithium Nevada Corporation might get from us. So I'm really grateful for everyone being here, and I'll let the next people go. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate you sharing that background. And we're going to go a bit deeper into the history as well with our next speaker, who's Dean Barlese. Dean is from the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, and we first met up at Peehee Mu'huh, up at Thacker Pass, when he came up to visit, and from the very beginning tell us some of the old stories about the land, about the history, about the so-called snake war that took place back in the history of that land. And Dean has offered to share a little bit about that with us today. Dean, could you introduce yourself and tell the folks who are listening a little bit about Bhie-Cie Mu'huh and what makes it important and why you decided to take action up there?
Okay. My name is Dean Barlese. I'm from Kuyupan and here, Pyramid Lake. And one of the reasons we really wanted to do something was our great, great, great grandpa. His name was Kutzadika'a. They later called him Jim Winnemucca. He was like the oldest son of Chief Winnemucca. So he stood up a long time ago and fought in the Pyramid Lake War and also the Snake War from 1864 to 1868. And he died an old man. He's buried north of Summit Lake. But this is only one area that was where they came in and massacred our people, our Paiute people, Bannock people, Shoshone people. And it was a war of extermination against our people during that time. There was another massacre before contact where these other people came in and killed our men, women, and children. And they got to be known for cutting the guts open and spreading the intestines all over the sagebrush. They did that here also back then, before contact. So, we had to wage a battle and chase them out of this country. So this is the same thing. Military came in and massacred our people. And then they wouldn't let our people go back and rebury them or bury them, take care of them. So the remains are still out there. The earth took care of Bhie-Cie, our Mother Earth took care of them herself. But really no prayers were said over them when they were buried, when they were put away. But anyway, there's a sacred place also, Sentinel Butte. A place like that is sacred because it sits out by itself. So it makes it a special place, a sacred place where people went and prayed. But we're still having to battle for what we truly believe in. We still have to fight for our right to go and pray, make offerings, do songs. And they are keeping us from doing that. They don't want us out there to pray in a peaceful way. So we had to do something. We had to step up and stand up and let that warrior spirit take over. And he did. So I still believe that way. If they still think that way, that's only one site. There's a few more massacre sites within that area along the Santa Rosa Mountains. All because of the Snake War. But I really had to stand up because I remember my dad's words. He said, sometimes you have to stand up. Sometimes you have to give your life. So I take that to heart. And that's the way I think about it. And I donate some items to fundraise. I got an old breastplate I got to put in, and hand drums, and maybe other things. But our Indian wars, they still continue. And they're not going to let up soon. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Is that good enough?
Yeah,
No.
thank you very much, Dean.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. We want to share with you all a little bit about the legal situation as well, because with this case, our attorneys are helping us to bring some innovative legal defenses that have never actually been tried before in courts inside this country, as far as we're aware. So here to speak with us a little bit about that is Terry Lodge. Terry's a longtime movement attorney. He's worked on all kinds of issues around anti-war, nuclear power, environmental issues, and more. Terry's a legend in parts of the movement for justice and ecology and peace around this country. And we're so grateful to have him as part of our legal defense team and on the event today. So, Terry, would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and what is the situation in our legal defense for the folks who are watching?
Thank you, Max. I'm happy to. As Max indicated, I'm an old guy, and I have indeed been practicing law for more than 45 years. A great deal of it has been involved in, among other things, representing individual plaintiffs in civil rights cases, handled a number of defenses of civil disobedience, have been virulently and personally anti-war since the Vietnam era, and have been greatly involved in opposing nuclear power and nuclear weapons. I do want to emphasize something that Will had mentioned, which was that our local council, a woman named Massey Mayo in Winnemucca, is experienced, skilled, but she is the one who must be paid. I'm working pro bono because this is a cause that I strongly believe in for a variety of reasons. Will is doing that also, and has the unfortunate dual role of being one of the defendants. But the three of us together have combined fairly well on some significant issues up to this point. Among the interesting, from a legal standpoint, the interesting defenses that we are raising is that we are, among other things, making a big deal out of the fact that the lease for the mine is only a lease, that in effect, Lithium Nevada Corporation does not have an ownership interest in the thousands of acres that they're going to permanently destroy. And thus, they actually don't have standing to pursue any kind of relief against the defendants. We're also raising a climate defense necessity defense, in that we are asserting that various of the defendants have done everything possible in a peaceful fashion, in a non-law-breaking type of fashion, to halt the progress and ultimately permitting the mine. It ranges, of course, from letters to personal meetings with public officials, to opposing things, trying to get politicians to intervene. It's basically everything from soup to nuts that people attempt to do. They try to persuade from a basis of reason, and when it becomes increasingly evident that the corporation is just going to roll forward, then you have to do other things. And so that's why people did what they did. They took a stand based on personal conscience and are opposing the mine with their bodies. And now LNC is trying to make an example of them and essentially, literally and figuratively, make them pay. What we are anticipating is litigation that may go on for well over a year and a half. It is looking like the probable trial date would not occur until early fall 2025. And that between now and that time, we'll be really busy. We're going to be requesting a great many documents from LNC. There will be motions filed by us as well as by the company, and we will be attempting to have the matter dismissed. I'm not optimistic that it will be dismissed without going to trial, but we will certainly be trying all of those kinds of things. The one aspect of SLAPP lawsuits, which is essentially what this is, that I'm familiar with, is that a lot of times the company does not want the spectacle of appearing to be bullying the public, and yet that's almost inevitable, and that of course is what occurs. The company has enormous resources, a lot of money to throw into just trying our time and our patience, and straining the side of the people, which invariably has fewer resources. So we will be hanging on, and that's why we're turning to you as friends of this very public, very important cause to fight back. If we can hold on long enough, there is possibly a chance that LNC will just decide that the bad publicity and the bad imagery that will be coming out of this over the next year and a half are more than they want to see happen. Right now, the image, of course, of lithium is that it's going to be our savior mineral, and it will help us unplug from gasoline and plug into electricity. Lithium Nevada is trying to join the corporate message that is, we won't be inconvenienced by this. It's just a stumble, a temporary stumble, that we're having a planetary ecological crisis. That, of course, is wrong, and their messages are disinformation. But that is the message that we have to combat with our presence, with our litigation, with our principles. So one thing that I'm looking for, if this ends up going to trial, is that we will be making this a sort of scopes trial of the 21st century. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, in the 1920s, there was a much ballyhooed lawsuit that was tried in Dayton, Tennessee, over whether or not evolution could be taught in the schools. And it was a tremendous issue of the era. And it basically pitted fundamentalist Christianity against secularist science, and maybe science won. But I found out in the intervening 100 years that the battle only began in the well before the 1920s. But we are looking to make this into the planetary crisis, the eco-chaos trial of the 21st century, if it ends up having to proceed all the way to trial. So thanks for your support. I hope that you will be generous and kindly.
Thank you, Terry, for that legal update. I wanted to let folks who are watching know that we can see your comments here. We're following them. Here's a comment from Elaine Harvey, who I know from her work trying to protect a culturally important site on the north bank of the Columbia River. I believe it's Yakima, traditional Yakima territory, an important gathering ground that a corporation wants to turn into a pumped hydro storage site. So another case of a culturally important site getting bulldozed, or potentially getting bulldozed for supposedly green technology. And this is a story that's becoming more and more common across the region and across the world. So please, if folks want to contribute questions, comments, please do. We'll pull them up on screen and try and answer them as much as we can. Again, if this is a fundraising event as well, so we want to update folks. I'm going to go to Will Falk here in a moment to add some more on this this legal background of the defense that we're trying to put together in this case. But if folks can donate to our legal defense fund, if possible, please do so. We're running an auction as well. There's some very cool very cool items that are available in the auction, and we'll drop the link for that in the comments of these live streams as well. But I want to go to Will Falk to add a little bit more on the legal situation. Will.
Yeah, Terry did a great job summarizing everything. I think, yeah, the only thing, the one thing I wanted to add about was that, yeah, in this case, we've brought as an affirmative defense, which is a type of legal strategy. We've brought the first ever, we believe, first ever in the United States biodiversity necessity defense. So, you know, Lithium Nevada is justifying its destruction of Thacker Pass, its destruction of this really important habitat there, as necessary for climate change. You know, their sort of marketing strategy is that, yeah, it sucks that we have to destroy all these sacred places, but climate change is so bad that we just have to do it anyway. But of course, climate change is certainly a huge problem and an existential threat to the planet. But it's not the only existential threat to the planet. You know, we're currently living through what's called the 6th mass extinction. Many scientists have come to believe that it's the worst mass extinction event that Earth has ever experienced. That's worse than the dinosaurs, worse than asteroids. And we're living at a time where 100 to 200 species are going extinct every single day. And it's actually, climate change is part of this mass extinction event. Species are going extinct because of climate change, but actually direct habitat destruction is a worse driver of the 6th mass extinction event. It's projects like these, it's mines like these that are driving so many species extinct around the world. And as we should all understand ecologically, we actually depend upon so many of those species. So it's sort of like a Jenga tower. The more species that get knocked off the face of planet Earth forever, eventually that Jenga tower that humans are on top of is going to fall. And that's going to be the end of humans as well. So one of, you know, there's endangered species like golden eagles, greater sage grouse. There's the Kings River purrg, which is an endangered snail that lives up there. And Lahontan cutthroat trout are another highly endangered species up in Thacker Pass. So we're arguing that we had to engage in this action to protect those other beings' habitat, to protect those golden eagles, to protect those greater sage grouse, to protect the Lahontan cutthroat trout. As far as we know, no one else has argued that. People have argued a climate necessity defense, which we will be doing too, because the mine actually contributes a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. But I just wanted to speak to that climate or to that biodiversity necessity defense. It'll be an interesting thing to argue. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks for that, Will. Appreciate your additions. Sorry, I had a blip in my internet there again. I've been having internet troubles, so apologies for that. We're going to go to some of our other defendants who are here with us because we want to make sure that all of us have a chance to speak and talk about who we are, what our reasons were for taking action at Peehee Mu'huh, at Thacker Pass, you know, why that place is special, why it's important, why these issues around greenwashing and green colonialism need to be stood up to, and why land destruction and the desecration and poisoning of water in all its forms must be stood up to. So first, I want to pass the mic here to Bhie-Cie, who is going to share a little bit about why she joined us up on the site. Bhie-Cie, it was so great to be up there with you, to have your always joyful presence standing up against the machine. So would you like to come in and share a little bit about who you are, your background, why you're part of the actions at Thacker Pass, at Peehee Mu'huh, and you know what it means to you to continue fighting through this legal defense?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I appreciate it. My name is Bhie-Cie, and I'm Te-Moak Shoshone and Washoe. And as we know, the federal government doesn't honor their treaties. So I am a descendant of the Ruby Valley Treaty of 1863, whereas if they had honored that treaty, 2/3 of the state of Nevada would be Shoshone territory. But of course, gradual encroachment is what they called it. That's their way of saying, well, things have changed. So forget what we said before. I'm so glad to all of you guys, especially my non-native co-defendants, because our soul and our heart and our bones and our blood are in that land. And you guys came and you gave up your lives and your time and you fell in love with the land in a way that we are so deeply rooted to it. You guys felt that just from your own heart connection. It wasn't the ancestral connection. And I appreciate you guys. And I learned to love the land from my very traditional grandpa. He took me out and he would make art, and he was a boarding school survivor. He reconnected with his own culture, and so he would flint knap arrowheads and other blades from obsidian. And so when you go out there to Thacker Pass and there's just obsidian everywhere, it's just glittering, it's just amazing. I just think how our people could find so much life out there. And there is, and I really take offense when people think that there's nothing, quote unquote, nothing in Nevada. It's just because they don't know how to love our land and appreciate it and see the beautiful things that are on it. Creator put everything there that we needed in terms of plant and animal relatives, that we could all live together and exist and be nourished and survive. And there's I think there was always an expectation that we should all be relatives and coexist. And with some of the tribal people, I saw a meme recently that said something like, when money talks, you can't hear your ancestors. And so it's really disheartening for me to know that some native people have been bought out by lithium, and they're just, they're not seeing the land the way their ancestors did. And so I just went out there basically to speak on behalf or represent or defend or even apologize for my role of my fellow humans to these plants and to these animals. And I mean, we group of defendants, we might be the last people who see them, who talk to them, who spend time with them, who apologized, who appreciated them and said, your homeland is beautiful, and I'm sorry that it won't be here much longer. This is going to be a big earth wound. It's going to be a giant pit mine and an earth scar. I was just out there doing the best that I could, even knowing that it might be futile.
Thank you, Bhie-Cie. I hear the emotion in your voice, and I know we all feel it, because you can't go out to that land. I mean, Will spoke to it a little bit, but the first time I went to Thacker Pass in October 2020, I fell in love with the place. I sat on the cliff back behind where the old camp used to be. Probably some people who are listening and watching this live stream know that old cliff up the valley right there. Follow the road, go past the big old grandmother sagebrush at the edge of the fence line right there, and then back up to that first cliff. And I sat up on top of that cliff and watched the sunset. This was in October of 2020. And there were all these insects flying past me, these little moths flying past me over the edge of the cliff and just dropping down and flying into the valley. Because as anyone who knows the area knows that the rabbit brushes all flower in the fall. And so there were all these yellow flowers just painting the whole of Thacker Pass, this beautiful color as the light faded. And then the bats started coming out, and then the stars came out, and the Milky Way above Thacker Pass, you know, this area that is incredibly dark, has been incredibly dark, because it's a place that hasn't been dominated by people. It's been a place where, you know, the impact of human beings has been light for a long time, and you know, and people lived in relationship with that land for a long time in a really good way. And as soon as I had that first experience out there, I absolutely fell in love with the place. And I just said, we have to fight for this. We have to fight for this. We can't let this go quietly. We can't allow this to be destroyed and allow people to lie and claim that this is green, that this is okay, that this is actually good, that it's actually positive and a good thing for the world to destroy places like this. And now you hear the emotion in my voice, because I get emotional and I feel protective and I feel the anger of that, and that's based in my love for that land and for that place. So thank you, Bhie-Cie, for your words and for your actions, and thanks everyone who's watching. There are about 100 people who are watching right now. Just to reiterate for folks who joined and perhaps haven't been here all along, this is an event about the situation at Thacker Pass. The 5 of us who are here, aside from Terry Lodge, are being charged. We're being sued by Lithium Nevada Corporation for some actions that we took to try and defend the land at Thacker Pass, Peehee Mu'huh, last year. And this event is an update. We want to tell people what we did, what happened, why, what's going on right now in our legal defense, and also ask for support, because we're all poor working class people. This is not a professional endeavor. You know, we were 10 minutes late for our live stream today because I'm at home and my internet went down, and this isn't a fancy, you know, I'm not coming to you from a corporate office or something like that. This is grassroots, and we're just people who care about the land and who are trying to make a difference, and trying to tell the truth about what's happening. So if folks are able to donate and support our legal defense, please do. The links are in the chat. And I want to pass it off to our next defendant, Paul Cienfuegos, who is a longtime activist, is very active for decades in issues of corporate power and corporate rule in the United States. I first met Paul over a decade ago, and was blown away by some of the work that he was teaching me about, you know, all the laws that protect corporate power and all the court cases that have been expanded over decades to give more and more rights and more power to corporations. And Paul joined us up there on the front line and took action with us. And because of that, and because of many other reasons, I'll always respect that. So Paul, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you're part of this group?
Sure. Thank you, Max. And also thanks for your amazing leadership in this campaign from day one with Will. Yeah, I've been doing grassroots community organizing for my entire adult life, and I'm now in my 60s, so it's 40 plus years. In the last almost 30 of those years, I've been a leader in the community rights movement, which is about dismantling corporate constitutional rights, corporate personhood, and other so-called constitutional rights that the Supreme Court almost entirely has granted to giant business corporations, and have led workshops all over the United States for decades doing this work. And a lot of the work is culture shift work. It's about how do we, the people, get back to a place where we remember that we are the sovereign people and that we have self-governing authority, and that corporations and governments are subordinates constitutionally, and they are required to serve us, and they have constitutional duties and responsibilities to us. And when governments or corporations do not fulfill those responsibilities, that we the people have the constitutional duty and authority to take back our authority and self-govern. And that's a pretty radical idea these days in the United States, but in the early American Revolutionary period, people really got this stuff. And so when I got involved in this campaign, I got involved through that context. I was like, you know, how do we get to a place where we can we use this campaign against this atrocious corporate behavior to help people understand that when corporations sue citizens, that the act of suing citizens is a so-called corporate constitutional right of a so-called constitutional right of a corporate person, that until the Supreme Court granted them that right, corporations weren't allowed to sue citizens. Corporations weren't allowed to donate money to influence elections or influence candidates or politicians. That was a Supreme Court granted so-called new constitutional right. Corporations weren't allowed to make decisions to mine anywhere, because that decision, again, was a democratic structured decision. And in a real democracy where corporations don't have constitutional so-called rights, a state legislature would have made that decision and granted a corporation the privilege, not the right, of doing some kind of industrial activity for the public good. And so on and on, because of what I've learned about the proper relationship between we the people and our servant corporations and our servant government, which is not Paul's utopian fantasy. This is constitutional reality that almost none of us in this country even know anymore. But I learned it 30 some years ago and have been teaching it ever since. What would it look like for we the people to be exercising that kind of authority and saying no to mining corporations, saying no to the Bureau of Land Management, who's violated the people's authority when they grant permission through the 1872 Mining Act without any proper public process, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I got involved in the campaign. I'm an anti-corporate rule, pro-real, authentic democracy community organizer and workshop leader for almost 30 years. And for me, this was just a perfect example of, you know, how do we reframe the issue so it's not, you know, that the corporation is mining this sacred place is actually not the problem. The problem is that we the people have permitted a corporation to mine this sacred place because we don't know our history, we don't know our power and authority, and can we use this campaign to kind of do that popular education work and start, you know, re-empowering ourselves as we the people. Anyway, that was my involvement in the campaign, and it's been a blast working with all of the other defendants, and I'm very proud to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. I want to give folks a heads up. We've got some questions coming in the chats, which is great. Keep questions coming. And we're going to go to Terry or Will in a moment to ask a legal question. I want to ask Dean to come back in and share any more thoughts that are on his heart, any more stories that he wants to tell. But I want to warn folks as well. We had a strange situation come up as we were preparing for this fundraiser in the past couple hours. Apparently, somebody created a Facebook profile called Water Protectors Lawsuit. And they sent friend requests to all kinds of people who are connected with us. And they're sharing a false link, watchlivehd24.com/waterprotectors. This is some sort of scam. They're trying to take advantage of the fact that we're raising money to get people to put in their credit card info. We have the real fundraising link is givebutter.com. That's the website, givebutter.com/Protect Thacker Pass _PTP. That link is in the description. It's in the comments of this video. That link is on the protectthackerpass.org website. Just so folks are aware, make sure you're donating to the right page. Don't go with the scammers. And we want to make sure that we're protecting all of you just as we're trying to protect the land, that all your donations are going where they need to go. But with that said, I want to thank Paul again for his work and for his strong, powerful words. And let's go ahead and go back to Dean, if you're willing. Dean, do you want to share a little bit more about your family background, your connections to the area around Thacker Pass, some more of the history of the region, or you know, the feelings that you have when you're up on the land there?
Yeah, I was privileged to be shown these areas, not only there, but westward toward Summit Lake, all the massacre sites. The one place we call Mu'huh, Maggot Creek. They call it Leonard Creek nowadays. But 120 of our people were killed there, mostly men, women, and, well, a lot of women and children. Very few survivors, like at all the other massacre sites. And they showed us, you know, where these people were massacred in that time. And when I go out there, we could still feel our people, the sadness of the blood lost, the blood that was spilled there. Sometimes you could still hear the children crying because the soldiers would come and bash in the back of their heads, or they would swing them by their feet. My dad said they'd swing them against the juniper trees and bash their heads in. My grandpa, great grandpa, survived all this. He fought really hard for our people. So I always remember those old stories, oral history that my relatives taught me, showed me. In many of the places they showed us where the massacres happened. And you go out there, you could still feel the sadness on the land. From Pyramid Lake northward into northern Nevada, southern Oregon, parts of Idaho, northeastern California. Our people fought hard for this land during that Snake War. But I remember the oral histories. So when we go out, we're always leaving offerings out there. Or burning sage or tobacco, praying, sing. We sing our songs out there. Just to let the old people know we still think about them, care about them. The other thing I want to share is right now, we are in the fourth world. And the old people, the old prophecies say this world is going to burn and it'll end. And I was told I'm going to be a witness to this when it happens. So it's coming fast. You see it going, people going crazy all over the world. And they're still massacring people, still carrying out genocide, you know, like this place, Palestine. They're still butchering their people there, indigenous people to Palestine. So it's not going to get any better. In fact, it's going to get worse. It's really going to get worse. And we see that every day something's happening. We just got to keep our prayers going strong, stand together as one people. That's all I want to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. I feel the deep irony and the deep injustice in the fact that a foreign mining corporation headquartered that not only is not a United States company, not only, you know, comes from a colonizer society, but is headquartered in Canada, is coming to this land and banning Paiute Shoshone people from accessing and protecting their traditional lands. The injustice of it is absolutely stunning to me. Preventing people from defending the place where their ancestors were killed, from defending a grave site from desecration and bulldozing. It's I run out of words to describe it because my body starts to shake when I think about that, when I feel it. Yeah, I think, Dean, as well, of sitting up there at Thacker Pass at Peehee Mu'huh around the fire with different elders and hearing some of them tell stories about, you know, sooner or later, all this modern technology is going to be gone. The electricity is going to be gone. You know, this way of life is going to end sooner or later. And people who live in that area are going to have to live with that place and the poisoned water coming off of that mine if it's built for hundreds and thousands of years. That's the legacy that's being left. It's truly a crime. So thank you for sharing those words. We have a legal question in the chat. It's from Jonathan, who came up to Thacker Pass at one point for a visit and is involved in some important work of his own in the West. Jonathan, I won't blow your cover completely, but here's his question. It's about SLAPP suits, and I'd love it if Terry or Will, one of you, could take the lead on SLAPP suits in Nevada and how they apply in this case. Will's pointing to Terry, so.
Will seems to be pointing at another screen, so I guess I'm it. The short answer is no, SLAPP lawsuits are not illegal. And the thing is that, you know, the companies that file the suits sometimes do have a superficial claim of having been wronged. It's just that they only rely on telling a very biased and partial story. What is true is that in a couple of dozen, maybe a couple of dozen states, there are laws. Unfortunately, Nevada is not one of them, but there are laws that I'm sorry, Nevada is one of them, but there were technical reasons that we couldn't take advantage of the law. There is a means of trying to, in an inexpensive, early way, have a court decide whether or not there's really a viable claim. The problem is that the law in Nevada and in several of the other states is shaped so that the court is simply asked to decide if the defense, the grassroots activity was arguably conducted lawfully or not. And civil disobedience is, of course, where people willfully take the risk that they might be performing criminal acts in the name of resisting a greater harm. So in Nevada, while we did attempt to make that test of the LNC case, it wasn't successful because some of the acts that the defendants are accused of would, in a really narrow, overblown way, be criminal acts. You want to add anything, Will? I probably screwed up my answer, so have at it.
No, I think you nailed it. We, yeah, I mean, Nevada has a kind of a restrictive anti-SLAPP suit statute. But yeah, I think that, you know, that point is like, corporations used to be able to bully people with for just engaging in pure speech, just saying something bad about the corporation. And of course, there's still ways that corporations can file slander and defamation type lawsuits, but when, you know, engaging in civil disobedience, actually confronting and challenging a law is not protected by those anti-SLAPP suits statutes. And of course, that's all part of, just like Terry said, that's all part of an overall political and corporate playbook to, you know, make sure that no one can actually challenge something like a massive mine that's going to destroy sacred sites and critical habitat and poison people that live around the mine. So Terry did a great job explaining that.
Can you post the auction link again, Max?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask folks who are watching to share that. I want to give an overview of the situation for folks who are just tuning into this live stream. We've got about 125 folks watching us now. So if you're just joining us, or if you've been here for a little while, this is a live event updating folks on Thacker Pass water protectors. Those of us who are on this call, Will, Paul, Dean, Bhie-Cie, and myself, along with a couple other folks and the organization Protect Thacker Pass, are being sued by a mining company called Lithium Nevada Corporation. They're a lithium mining company. They're based in Canada, and they are trying to build, they're in the early stages of building a massive open pit lithium mine in northern Nevada on traditional Paiute Shoshone territory. And this lithium mine is to supply electric car batteries. Specifically, the company has an agreement with General Motors Corporation. So any lithium that's produced at Thacker Pass will go into GM cars, electric cars. And this is a challenging situation because of global warming, because there's this big push right now to move from gasoline cars and diesel cars to electric cars. I think all of us who are here are very concerned about global warming. We see the heat waves, we see the shifts in weather, in extreme weather events, in more and more hurricanes, more droughts, oceans acidifying and coral reefs dying. All of these very real and very serious problems due to global warming. But we also see that what's happening at Thacker Pass is not a real way to solve this problem. It's an illusion. It's a lie. And this is what we call greenwashing. It's taking a destructive practice like blowing up an entire mountainside, poisoning water, leaving behind a toxic wasteland for generations, and describing that as something that is good for the planet, as a way to reduce opposition. And at Thacker Pass, it was actually pretty successful, because even though people like us showed up, even though there was a powerful grassroots movement that was built, we did not have any support from any of the large national environmental organizations. Not a single one stood up with us. And that is so disappointing and speaks so poorly to the ability of those organizations to react to the crises that we are facing today. And so I want to remind people that this is a fundraiser. This event is a fundraiser as well. We're trying to raise some money to support our legal defense. We're all working class folks, and while we have Terry working for free on our behalf as an attorney, helping with our legal defense, and while Will, one of the defendants, is also an attorney helping with the legal defense, we have to pay another lawyer to be our local counsel. And lawyers ain't cheap, but we want to defend us. This is a continuation of the political battle that started with the direct action and the protest camps in 2021, that continued with the lawsuits against the Thacker Pass lithium mine and the fights through the administrative process and in the courtroom, and the direct actions that took place last year that we participated in. This is a continuation of that fight. It's the same process playing out, and we really need folks' support to continue helping us raise awareness of these issues, spread the word, sharing this live stream event, donating to our fundraiser if you can't, spreading it around to as many people as possible. We are taking questions and comments. We're monitoring those, so I just want to highlight a couple of those. Here's one referencing the fake fundraiser link that's going around. Inani is asking if we know about tiger swan and the corporate disruption of the movement to stop the pipeline at Standing Rock, the No DAPL movement. Yes, absolutely aware of tiger swan, Inani, and it is certainly not inconceivable that the scammer is actually somebody hired by Lithium Nevada or somebody under their employ trying to throw some chaos into our legal defense, trying to discourage people from donating. These tricks are not beneath these corporations and governments, as we have seen and as we are seeing around the world. So I want to hear from other defendants. I'm wondering if Bhie-Cie or Paul, if you want to jump in and share anything more, if there's anything else that's on your heart right now about Thacker Pass, about the importance of it, about its significance in the broader movement to defend the planet and to reorient our world towards Mother Earth and away from a machine culture, and what this process has meant for you personally. Paul or Bhie-Cie, do you want to jump in?
That was a big question. I don't know if I caught all of it. And I have that bad habit every time I talk about something I really care about, like the land and the nature, I get all choked up. I have too many feelings and they stop at my words and come out my eyes. I did a short radio interview recently, and he asked me a really, I guess, scary question. He asked something to the effect of, what's the worst thing that could happen? And that was pretty bad. I mean, with Dean's reference to Palestine, the United States of America has committed so many waves of genocide against us indigenous people so that it could build America. In a way, this is just another erasure of us. So when he asked kind of, what's the worst thing that could happen? Killing us? I mean, they've done that. Poisoning us? They've done that. Stealing our lifeways and making our ability to practice our culture impossible in that spot? Well, they've done that. Taking my children? Like I said, my grandparents are boarding school survivors. So they've done that. So the sad answer, I guess, to his question, what's the worst thing that could happen? They've already done it. Time and time again. And I'm still here. I have kids. I just hope that us indigenous people are still connected to who we've always been and have our culture and have our lifeways after this evil occupying state has hit us with waves and waves of genocide.
Thank you, Bhie-Cie. We've got a few more legal questions here, and one question from Gordon that Terry or Will could chime in.
I can take the lead on this one if you want, Terry. I mean, our legal defense right now, especially if we go all the way through a trial into early fall of 2025. I mean, that's going to cost, it's not out of the realm of possibility that that's $50,000, $100,000 for us to pay our lawyer to litigate that whole thing. We also, I mean, that might not be including things like if the judge was going to allow us to bring in expert witnesses that could talk about how destructive lithium mining is, how lithium mining contributes to climate change. You know, this whole biodiversity necessity defense that we're talking about, you know, that starts getting us into $150,000, $200,000, paying for experts, getting them to wherever they need to be to testify, that kind of thing. So yeah, if this goes on into all the way into trial, then it's going to be pretty expensive. And then of course we might lose that trial, and we'll owe, you know, we might, the judge might order us to pay what are called damages to Lithium Nevada. So, you know, there's the cost of paying an attorney, and then there's also the cost of if we get fined. As far as can the mining company be countersued? I mean, the flippant answer from a lawyer is anyone in the United States can be sued for anything at any time. It's just a matter of how long that suit would last before a judge dismissed it. You know, we considered things like countersuing the mining company. But you know, the way that the law works is when a mining company locates valuable minerals on federal public land, they are given rights, which include possessory kind of rights, where they are allowed to control the land where those valuable minerals are. And if you trespass on that site, then they have standing to sue you. So the point I'm really trying to make here is you know, from the eyes of just your sort of basic property law, you know, we did trespass in order to engage in civil disobedience to protect that place and to protest that place when we had no other options. Of course, there were 2 lawsuits filed against the federal government for permitting the mine. Those lawsuits never had the power to stop the mine. Those lawsuits only had the power to force the government to re-engage in a consultation process, re-engage in a permitting process. And I really want to drive that point home, because I find it's something that people don't really understand about American law. And there's this law called the 1872 mining law, which grants corporations near absolute rights to mine valuable minerals that they locate on federal public land. And they can do this for very cheap, like I think it's something like $150 to stake a claim to 20 square acres of public land. And they get a permit that the government has no discretion to deny. So when people think like, oh, it's our public land, it's only our public land until a mining corporation locates valuable minerals on it. And once that happens, the corporation has an absolute right to mine those minerals. And it's important to understand too that it doesn't matter if Native folks say this is the most sacred place in the world to us. You cannot destroy this place to mine. American law says that is not enough to trump a mining corporation's right to mine. That's a big thing that we really need people to start to understand. So many people think that, oh, if a place is sacred, or oh, if there's endangered species somewhere, they can't build this mine. That's not true. American law says that they can. And that's why citizens like us, people like us, have no other choice but to try and confront these mines through things like civil disobedience, because there is no the government has no discretion to pull these permits. And yeah, this is the kind of thing that's going to have to happen if we're going to challenge the whole so-called green energy wave that is really set to destroy what's left of northern Nevada and what's left of the Great Basin.
And the corporation's right to mine is a so-called constitutional right of a corporate person.
Right.
I want to just keep drilling this into people so they understand. Whenever you hear the corporation has a right to ... it's almost always because the U.S. Supreme Court granted them a right that they should never have been entitled to. These are constitutional rights meant for human beings.
If I can briefly jump in, I just want to point out that the Endangered Species Act is a really good example of what Will was talking about. It doesn't guarantee that endangered species will be protected. And in fact, there is the process known as incidental take permitting, where the agency actually allows the company to, unfortunately, some animals have got to die in the process of developing our mine. And it is very sadly one of the types of mechanisms where once there's sort of a beachhead, it becomes a haggle and a regulatory problem to limit what damage actually occurs, whether it's to animals or to the earth itself. People are surprised. I've been litigating against nuclear power since the 1970s, and people are surprised when I explain to them that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is not there to instruct the utility companies to not allow any emissions of radiation into the air and water. They are there. The NRC exists to limit and impose some restrictions, but even those restrictions become rubbery and very difficult to enforce in any consistent, tight way. I mean, there's all kinds of the critiques of the so-called regulatory model. You don't fund the agency adequately enough to have staff to be watchdogs. You have a weak prosecution arm. You don't fund the scientific side of the agency, so they can't keep track of who they're regulating. So the problem is that the company's gotten a permit, and the presumption legally is that, as Paul said, it's a corporation, it's a person, they can have at it.
Thanks, Terry, Paul, and Will. Some good additions there. One piece that I want to bring into this, we're getting some more great questions coming into the chat, and folks who are joining, feel free to donate to the legal defense. One point that I want to bring into this to make sure that people understand is that the whole story that we've been told about electric cars being green is a lie. It's a complete lie. And one story that just illustrates this so clearly, this was just on May 24th, a week ago. The latest report from Tesla, the electric car company Tesla, shows that its operations result in 30 million metric tons of carbon emissions per year, even when accounting for the reduced pollution from the fact that these are electric cars and not gas cars. So these companies are not protecting the planet in any way. This is not, the net emissions are 30 million metric tons, which is huge. The most recent data for the entire country says that passenger cars in the US, all passenger cars in 2022, put out 370 million metric tons. So Tesla company alone is responsible for 30 million metric tons, nearly 10% of the total emissions from all cars, just from this one electric car company. And that's net emissions. So that's subtracting, the reductions that they're causing because these are electric. And I just want to make this crystal clear to people, because it's not, the problem is not that these cars, this whole electric car transformation is going to take us to a better future, and it just needs to be done in the right way. That's not the problem. what's actually happening is that this industrial society, this industrial civilization that we live under, is building new industries. It's creating new profit streams for corporations and for capitalists. It's creating new ways to make money and to capitalize on people's desire to defend the planet and to build a greener future. They are exploiting us. They are exploiting our desire for a better world, to protect our children, to protect the water, to protect the whole world. And they are using that to sell cars, which are destroying the world. So this is the definition of greenwashing. It's the definition of lies and deception. And we're seeing this not just with lithium mining and not just with electric cars, but with so many other issues as well, whether it's pumped hydro energy storage, whether it's wind turbines. I live in Oregon, and there's massive proposed wind turbine arrays off the Oregon coast, which would have potentially catastrophic effects on the ecosystem, on the entire ocean circulation, on the whales and the marine mammals, on the salmon and the other fish who live in these oceans, on the plankton and the very base of the food chain. Nobody has ever done offshore wind in any location that is like the West Coast before. It's never been done. And yet they are rushing ahead over the objections of, now nearly a dozen Native American tribes all along the West Coast who are speaking out against this, the National Congress of American Indians, environmental groups, grassroots environmental groups, not the mainstream big environmental groups, and the communities, the rural communities who rely on fishing in these waters to get by. People are speaking out against this. And what we have said from the beginning is that we don't care whether you're blowing up a mountain for lithium or for coal. It's wrong. It's wrong to blow up a mountain. We should not be doing it. We should not be allowing it to happen. And I just want to make that, this is my feeling and this is my belief, and I think it's very important in this whole issue. We got a comment here from Nikki, who said she drove by Thacker Pass a few weeks ago and it made her break into uncontrollable sobbing. The water courses have been concreted, big mounds of soil in the center of the project area. I think they're wrapping up surface bulldozing and starting to prep to dig down in earnest. She says, I don't know the status of the man camps, but I hear they will be flying in workers from Argentina soon. So they're moving forward. We got a question from, question from Helen. Nikki's comment answered part of this question: how far is mine construction progressed? But she's also asking if direct action is so heavily litigated, if people taking action out there are going to be targeted by the company, what are the physical and legal opportunities to stop destruction from this mine? Does anyone want to take a stab at that?
I can answer it if you like. So I guess the first thing that the first way to answer this question, Helen, I think goes back to something that Dean said a little bit ago. And I've heard Dean say this before, and it's always really matched something that I guess, I don't know how to say it. Something that I feel like I know in my heart, or something that I suspect in my heart. And Dean said, things are going to get worse. Things are going to get a lot worse. And, I think that I feel like that's true on a spiritual level. It's also true on a basic physical level. I said that, I quoted that stat about 100 to 200 species a day going to extinct right now. That only can happen for so long before everything collapses. And, basic arithmetic just tells us that. And my point is that as the world's resources get consumed by humans in this way, and understand too that humans are consuming more of the earth at an ever faster pace. It's not like all of this ecological awareness, all of this love for the natural world that humans profess is actually making anything physically better right now, because it's not. Everything is getting worse on planet Earth. And so as that happens, like we're already seeing, world powers, the most violent people in the world are gonna try and control and destroy those resources for their own benefit. And so things like civil disobedience, while I certainly can say this has been a really stressful and scary thing that we engaged in, I think that, you know, it's ultimately, we're going to have to figure out how to actually stand up and actually stop this stuff. If we want there to be a livable planet left, if we want there to be a Great Basin left, if we want there to be places like Thacker Pass left. And, you know, it's not a good idea to get too far into specifics about this, but the thing that I always think of is we just walk outside today and we can see evidence of the destruction all around us. And if we really think that Earth is our mother and we really call her Mother Earth, we walk outside every day, we see Mother Earth being beaten in the street in front of us, being beaten in our backyards outside. And if you see your mother, your actual mother being beaten, do you stop and ask, is it okay if we engage in civil disobedience to stop this? Do we worry about getting sued to stop the beating of our mother? Or do we just figure out how to stop it and do that? And I don't want to give anyone any sort of false hope. It's going to be really scary. A lot of people are going to be hurt if we actually do what's necessary to stop the destruction of the planet. But it is the only home that we have, and it is in my opinion the only option that we have. And I think one of the things that has been such a balm to my heart throughout all of this, and this kind of event really shows, is that we, those of us that have been sued and those of us that did engage in that civil disobedience, we've got each other. Kind of like Bhie-Cie was saying, it's been both a super scary time and stressful time dealing with all of this, but it's also been an extremely encouraging thing to go out there and take a brave stand with other brave people. And I think these are the kinds of things that we're all gonna, if we start to do this and we start to experience that encouragement, and we find that community by actually taking action and finding those people, then I think we're going to learn that we're capable of a lot more than we ever thought. And we are going to have to do things that are much more scary than maybe we've ever thought of, if we're really going to stop this madness. So thank you.
Thank you, Will. Does anyone else want to jump in and add to that answer? Bhie-Cie says no. I want to highlight a couple more comments that we're getting here. Jennifer Ann says that when she and her boys went up to Thacker Pass and saw the land, she felt like she couldn't even breathe. I can relate. I can absolutely relate to that. Elaine is asking about whether the affected tribes are treaty tribes. It's a bit of a challenging situation, Elaine. From what I understand, the Treaty of Ruby Valley starts east of Thacker Pass, so it doesn't actually affect the territory, which means that these are unceded lands. They were never given to the United States by treaty. They were never signed away, and so they're essentially claimed as conquest of war. I believe that Terry has an attorney friend who's done a lot of work on the legal basis for that and has written a book on the topic that came out last year. Let's see, other questions, other comments. Brandy says that in Michigan, the similar thing is happening. Wild places and waterways taken for toxic EV battery mega sites. This is happening all around the world, and I'm actually studying this right now for a master's degree, and I don't think people recognize the scale at which this is happening. Lithium mining alone is exploding around the world, but when you add in the other aspects of the renewable energy economy, we are seeing just an avalanche of projects across the planet. And this is adding to the destruction caused by fossil fuels. It's not counteracting it. It's not undoing it. It's not stopping it. More fossil fuels are being burned right now than ever before in history, even as this new avalanche of renewable energy and electric vehicle projects comes online. Yeah, absolutely. As Gordon said, zero emissions is complete BS, and we agree. So let's see. Paul is asking us about other permits in the McDermott caldera on the Oregon side of the border. And Will, I'm wondering if you could speak to that one briefly.
Yeah, I mean, one mine that's pretty decently far through the permitting process. I think it's sort of colloquially called the Jindalee mine. I think it's Max, you might know the actual geographic things better, but as the crow flies, I think it's only like 20 miles north of Thacker Pass. There's 3 or 4 other kind of bigger proposed mines within the caldera itself, which, 2 or 3 more mines, and there's not really going to be much of a caldera left anymore. But yeah, that's a big thing, and it's happening all over the Great Basin. It's happening all over the United States right now. Corporations are seeing an opportunity to make a lot of money extracting the minerals that are needed for this so-called green energy transition. But yeah, the McDermott caldera is definitely ground zero. That's a place that it seems like the government has just decided is going to be sacrificed. But I think over the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to oppose those mines in the caldera itself.
And it would be really great if folks listening in who are Oregon based could tell one of us by email or here that you might be interested in a campaign that starts earlier on in the process against some of these early Oregon lithium proposals.
I wonder if I could just inject a slight change of direction about lithium that people may not know about and I think need to understand. I'm also going to send you a URL to please post to the chat, since I'm somehow not able to do that. There's a nuclear weapons connection to lithium, and it's very troubling. Nuclear fusion, which is what happens when you detonate a thermonuclear weapon, creates energy by combining deuterium and tritium to create helium. And a compound known as lithium deuteride is created by combining lithium and deuterium, and is used to basically fuel so-called modern thermonuclear weapons. The thing is that what lithium does is it supercharges. There are 2 actual nuclear weapons that are conventionally being built around the world. There's a 1-stage and a 2-stage. The 2 stages are the ones that are just, well, they're all incredible, but it's sort of the difference between the Hiroshima weapon, roughly, and the nuclear weapons tests in the Bikini Islands in the 1950s, which were gigantic, the largest human-made explosions in the world, in the history of the world. So Lithium is a vital ingredient to supercharging nuclear weapons. The United States spends $50 billion a year in updating and maintaining and expanding our nuclear weapons arsenal. Even though you hear stories that there are fewer weapons, that's very true. But they are supercharged thermonuclear bombs. Lithium figures very centrally in the ability of us to have nuclear-powered submarines that there are about 16 Ohio-class submarines, each of which is outfitted with warheads, 64 warheads, and a single 16 thermonuclear bomb-laden warhead is capable of blasting 64 cities. And that is because lithium helps supercharge while the actual bomb itself is able to be shrunken, and it's now, as I just indicated, possible to deliver 64 shots from one missile. And that's incredible. And maybe lithium from Thacker Pass won't go for that. I won't be surprised over the 45 or 50-year history of that mine, however, that a lot of it doesn't end up being purchased by the federal government. Thank you.
Absolutely, Terry. It's stunning and shocking. I wrote a piece about that, the lithium nuclear weapons, nuclear energy connection, while we were up there at the protest camp in 2021.
Yes, you did.
Just learning about it myself, I think it was a tip from you or somebody else that led me down that rabbit hole. One of the many rabbit holes, just like learning that the lithium at Thacker Pass will be extracted using sulfuric acid that comes from oil refineries. That's a waste product from oil refineries. And that likely a good chunk of that will come from tar sands oil, because tar sands is this very sulfur-rich chemistry. And so when they refine it, they pull out the sulfur, they make oil out of it, and they pull out the sulfur. Because of acid rain, they're mandated to remove the sulfur from this tar sands, and they're left with giant piles of it that then they sell to other users. And one of those users will be the Lithium Nevada Corporation for the Thacker Pass lithium mine, and they're going to be shipping in 2 Empire State Buildings worth of sulfur from oil refineries every single year to Thacker Pass in order to essentially burn the lithium out of the clay using sulfuric acid. So one of many nefarious, dirty connections that this industry has to earth-destroying, ecocidal, omnicidal projects all around the planet.
Of course, they call things like using waste oil as a sort of a form of recycling or efficient usage of resources. And what it will do to the air quality of the Great Basin is also very disconcerting.
So I think we're going to move towards wrapping up the event, everyone. We've been here for a while. Our defendants are getting tired, and they've got a long, we have a long legal road ahead of us. We're getting into the discovery phase of our lawsuit coming up here in the next couple months, which is going to be probably pretty exhausting and grueling. We're going to get questioned by the mining company's attorneys. And so we've got a lot of preparation to do. We've got a lot of work to do to defend ourselves, to advocate, to speak out, to reach out to the media, to keep this story in people's minds and hearts, to build solidarity with other people fighting mining across the region and across the world, and to keep ourselves going in the face of all this. So I want to thank everyone who's been donating. I want to thank everyone who supported what we're doing, everyone sharing this, everyone who came out to camp, who participated in the actions in some way, who helped boost what we're doing, who helped get this story in the media and keep it moving. Everyone who's been moved by this, and it's changed them in some way. I think that's a lot of people, and I'm just incredibly grateful to all of you, because there's a long way to go. We shared the auction link in the chat, so folks know that auction actually closes tomorrow, something like that. I'm not exactly sure on the time, but there's a countdown on that. We may run another one of these fundraisers in the future, So we had a question. Bhie-Cie was asking about people who want to donate to the auction. We would love to have any donations that people want to make, objects or non-monetary things that they want to contribute that we could then run in our next auction. That would be amazing. We would love that type of support. And any other ways that people want to support, get in touch with us, reach out via Protect Thacker Pass. You can find us on social media. You can find us in different ways. We're just regular average people. We're just human beings just like you who got concerned about these issues and just decided to take action. And so we're going to close up here shortly. I want to make sure that we get a chance to go around and hear any closing words, any final thoughts from all of us. If you want to, feel free to pass if you'd like to. But I want to remind folks that the donation link is in the chat. It's the givebutter.com link. And we really appreciate any contributions you can make to help pay for our legal defense and support what we're doing. We're poor working class people. We're not full of money. We're not supported by some big environmental group or anything like that. We're just regular folks trying to defend the land, trying to defend the water. And yes, this video will be available to share later, Gordon. So any closing thoughts? Anyone, feel free to raise your hand and jump in.
Yeah, I just want to really appreciate the 150 or more people who came on to participate in this call. That's fabulous. And I keep going on the auction page and discovering that most of the auction items haven't received a single bid yet. So I'm hoping to see lots and lots of bidders in the next 24 hours. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Paul.
Same for me, just lots of thanks and gratitude for people who took time out of their evening to listen to us and hear about the details. We're just one small group and one tiny fight in one corner of the earth, but like we said, we're not alone, and there's a lot of people who feel the same way we do. And so for people who can't go out and get into legal trouble, just listening, sharing, donating, supporting is really great. Thank you.
Thanks, Bhie-Cie.
I just want to say thank you. I'm having trouble with all my technology, but thank you all. And we'll continue the prayers, continue to stand strong. Thank you, guys. And any way you can help us. We're the poorest of the poor, I would say. Well, I am anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Will, Terry, any closing words?
I think Dean and Bhie-Cie and Paul's thanks were perfect. Yeah, just from the bottom of my heart, thanks for listening to us, and we appreciate any generosity you can share. And yeah, just thank you all very much.
I think I echo what Will just said, but I hope that people aren't deterred by the fact that we're talking about being in things for the long haul. We're talking about devoting as much as you can of your life and your resources and your awareness to telling other people, to informing yourself, to taking action where and when you can. A couple of these, several of these people are writers. I've heard all of them talk about the beauty of a sunny day in the Great Basin. I've been to the Great Basin myself. We're talking about protecting what's left of the last great, beautiful places on the planet. Because if we don't, it's not just going to be loss of a viewshed. It's going to be loss of the ecosystem and the earth that protects and nurtures all of us. Thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate you all being here. And I want to give, I guess my final words would just be to give my thanks to the land and give my thanks to Thacker Pass, to Peehee Mu'huh, to the place that, you know, that cannot be described by a name and by, you know, simple words, that has to be experienced. And that place is being bulldozed right now. That place is being destroyed. And I feel that every day. I feel the heaviness in my heart. And I also feel I could not have lived with myself had I not tried to take action and tried to defend it. And it's not just one place. You know, the whole world is at risk. The whole world is under threat. And we need to defend all the factors around the world. So that's my final thank you, is to the land. Thank you, everyone who's watching. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support. And we will talk to you all soon. Blessings to you all. Thank you for speaking for the land. Bill says thank you. Thank you all. We'll see you all soon.
Yes.
This fight isn't over. It's going to be a long journey, so I'm sure we will see you all again soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
All right.